All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a recorded version of the Choroideremia Research Foundation's webinar on communication. Now, we did this with Russ Keeney. We did this several weeks ago, and it was a webinar. Excuse me, it was a chat, and there were people on it, and we were sharing personal information. So we ended up not recording it, and we decided to come back. It will not be that long, but I took some notes and some of the highlights, and we wanted to just make sure that we recorded some of these things so that when you wanted to have effective communication with your loved ones and colleagues and friends about choroideremia or about vision loss, sometimes communication can be hard, and we just want to touch on maybe some things to consider when going through some of those tough times. So to welcome you again, my name is Beth Foss, and I am the Director of Operations with the Choroideremia Research Foundation. I will tell you that this is probably one of the most requested topics in our conferences. And when we do our surveys after webinars, everybody always puts down, have something about how to talk about choroideremia. How do we talk with people about it? So here's what we're going to do. I want to make sure too that I highlight a thank you to our sponsors, which would be Allergan and Biogen. They have graciously given us grants to be able to put these on and to share them with our members. And with that, we'll get started. Thank you so much. Today, I have a good friend of ours. Actually, I mentioned this before, but he's a very good friend of Corey's, Corey McDonald's, childhood friends. But boy, oh boy, I'm glad, Russ, that you're going to be a friend of ours now at the foundation. You are a huge blessing to the people that were on our last talk, and I know to me too. So we can just go ahead and get started. Russ, I'll let you talk in a second. He is a licensed clinical counselor, and he joins us from his office today. So why don't you share a little bit about who you are and what you do, and we'll jump then into the topic.
Okay, thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was really a joy to do that meeting with everybody. It was great to meet people within the organization. And Corey told me beforehand, just remember we're family. And it really picked up on a sense that everybody cared about each other. And it's such a beautiful thing. So again, my name is Russ Keeney. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor. So just counselor, it's a lot of words for something I do. I've been doing this since 2006, in different various places. Right now, I'm at my office in Gastonia, North Carolina. I do a lot of individual counseling, family counseling, couples counseling, and primarily since April of this year, I've been doing online counseling. I haven't seen many folks in person. I'm joined as every day with my partner in crime, my dog, who is by my feet and asleep right now. If you hear him snoring, I'll try to kick him a little bit to wake him up. But
we have to make sure, we have to, by the end of the time that we have, you have to get him back up, because you guys, he's huge. He's huge.
He's huge. You know, he's about 90 pounds now. He thinks he's about 10 pounds. So when he gets in my lap, it's an interesting exercise. But as I say, yeah, when Beth had approached me about this, and I'm so interested, we're talking about a debilitating disease that in so many ways is a heartbreak to so many, not just the people experiencing it, but their family members, because suddenly out of nowhere, things become very narrow in as far as, you know, obviously your sight, but also the things that you used to enjoy that you're not able to enjoy. And how do we experience that? How do we experience that as people? How do we experience that as family members? And I think that's really a great thing to continue to dialogue about as we delve into this.
Right. No, I think you're spot on with that. And I think, you know, as we've talked about in our sessions before about communication, and, you know, things can, whether it be in a marital relationship or between friends, and again, colleagues at work, you know, we talked a little bit about how communication is not a passive thing. You want to touch on that just a little bit?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I've had people ask me, you must love counseling. You get just to sit and listen, and it just seems like a really easy job. And here's a reality: it for all of us, whether you're a counselor or not, it takes more energy to actively listen to somebody than it does actually to say things. Because when you're actively listening, you're paying attention, and you have to really drown out any distractions when you're hearing somebody to try to get a feel, not just what they're saying, as we talk about, but also where are they at with this. There's so much that happens when people have a conversation. The stats, I've read different stats, but the stats that I've read are that it's only about 10%, 9 to 10% of words that are actually heard in a conversation. The rest is body language, tone of voice, the warmth that you bring to it or not. And those things are picked up on. As a, when you think about it, there are times where I get insomnia like anybody else, and I'll turn the TV on, and inevitably, after I've had my share of infomercials and Spanish TV, and I don't understand Spanish, I'll turn it off. And what I've noticed when I've turned on the Spanish TV, that it could be a soap opera, it could be a game show. I can't understand many of the words. I know some Spanish, but not enough to hold a conversation. And yet, when I hear people speak, I can really understand what's going on. I don't have to know the words of really what's going on between these people. And it goes to say that when we talk and when we speak, people are hearing much more than the words that are coming from your voice. They are hearing, are you sincere? Are you afraid? Are you interested in what I'm saying? All of these things are coming out, and they're felt by the hearer. And it's something to keep in mind as we try to share the struggles that you may be going through because of this disease, that you need to be able to clearly enunciate what it is that you're feeling, and understand that the family members who are listening need to be able to listen, not just with their ears, but with their eyes. What's going on with the person's body language? What's this person going through? And I think it's important.
Russ, that's good, because a lot of us don't see very well, right? And so you oftentimes can sense something. I'm thinking, even in my own house, something's up sometimes even before a word is said. I'm sorry about the dings. I'm getting some emails. I apologize. If we can't really see, with choroideremia, we have low vision. So if you can't really see or read somebody's body, or you can't necessarily their body images or their language, are there certain types of words or ways that you would start off a conversation with somebody? It might be heated, or it might be more of an emotional kind of a discussion, or we want to talk about how we're frustrated, we're angry, we can't see something, we banged into something. Is there a way that before we just put it out there, that we can just stop, be quiet, maybe think through some things, and then start with the conversation? Do you have any tips on that?
I absolutely do. The first and foremost, if you're going to have a difficult conversation, you have to really know exactly what is it that I want to have heard. You can't just lay it out there and think that everybody knows what I'm feeling. If you're experiencing frustration because people are not taking you seriously, or they're treating you almost like a child, and it feels frustrating, understand that what is it that you want to have heard is the first step. The second step is to be very intentional with your conversation. One of the things about conversations is oftentimes we get lost in what we want people to feel rather than what we want them to hear. And because of that, we get stuck in this vicious cycle of feeling misunderstood. But it really comes down to it. Be very accurate, very intentional with what is it that I want to have heard here.
Mhm. And when you have those conversations, is it good to, we talked about this, I believe, a little bit too, is to have a set time or have, sit down, not something that's, in passing, that you're being very deliberate when you have these conversations.
It is. It is. So, and that's a great point. And I always hear, I do a lot of couples counseling, and he or she will say, well, I was listening to you, but what they didn't say was the TV was on, their back was turned, and they were in the middle of doing something else while the words were passing through the air. No, they weren't listening. They might have heard the words, but they certainly weren't listening. So really, first and foremost, is set up some ground rules, that we are going to sit. Whenever somebody is standing over another person, there is an issue of power. And when there is an issue of power, that gets thrown into the conversation in such a way that somebody is afraid to say something, or they're afraid not to listen, and that's not comfortable. Sit down, um, uh, call call it for what it is, but you also need to have some timing on it. For the next 20 minutes, can we just spend some time, because I want to be able to say something. If the person speaking wants to simply speak, and not get any criticism, then they should say, I don't really want you to fix me, or I don't really want you to come up with a solution. I just need to be heard. Can you do that right now? And I have to say, Beth, that is a skill we all have to practice. When we're talking, and especially if somebody says something we don't understand or disagree with, we oftentimes want to interrupt. And I have to say, that's really not good listening. No, don't, no, you're not interrupting. Listen, it'll come out.
That's good. I'm hoping that people that are going to be watching this, it might be individuals, it might be couples, and it might just be a spouse of a CHMer, because one of the points that have been raised within the wives group, I know I've heard this, is that they would like to talk to their husbands or their boyfriends about vision issues, or this is the spouse's perspective, and whether it be you don't pick up your socks off the floor, simple, easy things, but that it could make that person feel bad, or it could put guilt on their spouse, the person who has choroideremia. What is the best way from a spouse's perspective, do you think, to have those conversations with, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, you don't want to be hurtful in any way, and it can suddenly, what you want to have be a very profitable conversation, can turn inside out and go a different direction entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it goes back to the intentionality of what we bring to a conversation. I love Brene Brown. She's just amazing. She's an amazing writer, amazing speaker. If you ever get a chance to see her, there was a short, it was actually an animated feature she did that went around the internet. The difference between sympathy and empathy. And sympathy is basically when somebody says, I recognize that you're struggling, but in a sense, they're not interested in being there with them. I recognize it, but I'll get back to you. Or, we hear this at funerals, and funerals can be brutal on people. And it's not necessarily because of what people have gone through in the loss all the time. It is what is being told during these times. We say really dumb things to try to comfort people. And oftentimes those dumb things include not really being interested in comforting as much as it is being there to put their mark that I'm here for you, but then they're nowhere around. So there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And Brene Brown describes it as somebody who is sympathetic will recognize the need, but not really do anything. Somebody who has empathy, they may not even have the right words, but they're willing to sit along with that person. And in somewhere in the back of their own mind, experience the same type of loss. It may not be the exact same, but to experience that with them, just to walk alongside. Most of us just need someone to hold our hand during the hard times and to walk next to us and say, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That is without a doubt one of the things we need the most in relationships, in families, is not to be fixed, but just have somebody walk alongside us and just hold our hands for a little bit.
Mhm. Mm. Mm. That was one of the points that I wrote down in my notes that I'm glancing down at. You hit that one. Thank you. Let's see. You know, you talked about the gestalt theory. And for those of us that went into college and we had our psychology 101, 201, or our sociology, we learned about the gestalt theory.
Mm.
And so I want you to talk about that for a minute. But before you do that, it kind of all gelled together. I would love for you to visit with me a little bit, and I wrote some more notes down here. You spent probably the last 15 minutes, and we had really good discussion with our group about how vision is just a part of you. Vision is not the whole, is not who you are. It's part of who you are.
Mm.
But it says it paints or taints the whole. It's one part. So we talked about when vision loss taints the whole, or maybe we perceive that it taints us, where others don't feel that way at all, especially from a professional perspective. Does that give you enough bullet points to chew on for a minute?
My goodness, yeah, we can go on for a while. So I practice Gestalt therapy to the best of my ability. One of the things about Gestalt is you can use a lot of different methods, but the primary focus is trying to bring people to the here and now. The here and now is where we live. There is a sense where we can get stuck in our past and have unresolved things, or we can worry about the future, and it just puts us in this awful spin where we're not doing anything. We're not moving forward. We're not correcting anything about ourselves. We're just in this awful spin of guilt and shame and what ifs and on and on and on. Well, the reality of it is all of our healing, all of our awareness of what we need to go through and what we need to process is in the here and now, in this very moment. So one of the things about Gestalt therapy is bringing people to the here and now, but it is in the sense making people aware of their whole self. Fritz Perls was the author of the Gestalt theory. And what he said basically was that the sum of who we are is not equal to our whole. In other words, we are made up of many different aspects. In this community, yes, sight is a loss. We have to go through a grieving process of what we used to be able to see and to be able to experience in somebody else. But that is one aspect of you as a whole person. When we lose something, I love this metaphor of the road. And I don't even know who I heard this from, but if we're driving down the road and we take a turn down the street we haven't normally gone down, and we hit a pothole, and a lot of us can relate to potholes and the damage it does to our cars. We realize, okay, that pothole did something to the tire in my car, and I'll get it fixed either there or at a gas station. But when I come down the same street, maybe a week later, as I approach that street that I turned down, my thought is going to go to, there's a pothole in that street, and maybe I shouldn't go down that street, or maybe I should go really slow. Maybe I should put signs out everywhere pointing that there's a pothole here, whatever it is. Please don't do that. There's some therapy for that. But with that being said, we tend to taint the entire road because of the one pothole and the one experience we had with that pothole. Yes, it was a loss. Yes, it was frustrating, but there's much more on that road. There's much more to experience on that road. And it's the same when we lose something. We lose something, and in order to help ourselves, to protect ourselves, to feel better about ourselves, we draw away from it. And we do that by Xing that certain aspect of whatever it was, the loss and oh no, and everything around that, as we say, gets tainted with this idea that my loss is also including all this other part of me. And I'm here to say that that's not true. We do it to heal, but eventually you're going to go back down that road. And eventually you're going to realize the houses are very pretty on that road, and the landscape is really nice and the people are very nice. It's just one pothole in the middle of the road.
Mhm.
So when we approach this idea of wellness, and especially with gestalt therapy, it's about coming to a realization that who you are as a whole is much, much more important than that one sum of what you lost.
You just took my second point I was going to ask you about. It was right there. It's knowing who you are is paramount, so that when you have a discussion or you engage with somebody that is challenging or is challenging that part of you that you're vulnerable in, it'll over time, it'll be like water off a duck's back. It won't hit you so hard.
Mm, mm, yeah.
You know, were you going to say something?
No,
Do you have some coping mechanisms now that I mentioned that? We didn't talk about it, but I think it might be valuable to spend a minute. If you are having a conversation with somebody and you do have that type of interaction, whether it be with a friend, a colleague, a child even, and your feelings are hurt, and it hits, there was somebody, I'll put it this way. There was somebody on our Facebook group who posted recently. He's a great guy. He posted, I was having a really good day, just for whatever reason, having a good, normal, happy human day. And then he said, and then I remembered I'm losing my sight. And it hit me like a 2x4. And he put it, he said, does anybody else ever feel like that? And he said, it just kind of hits you in the gut. And I can't tell you, there were a ton of people that wrote down that they had daily similar experiences just like that. And some people wrote in how they dealt with it. Some people said that they don't have that experience because they put coping mechanisms in place so they didn't get to that point. I know we didn't really talk about this ahead of time, but did you have any thoughts on that?
yeah, yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought that up because number one, when we get to that point, the realization of yes, um, I'm losing my sight. What if there's a sense where reality kicks in, but back to what we just talked about, that yes, I'm losing my sight, but I still have so much more. I'm a music lover. I can turn on music and just put myself in a different place. There's something about the richness of music, the experience of it, that I can really relax. I grew up, and Corey can tell you, every time you come to the house, the radio is always on. My mom, my dad always had the radio on, but I enjoy music. If I lost that, it would be a great loss. It would be an enormous loss. But the reality is that's just one aspect of one of the things I like. Realizing that it's a loss shouldn't stop us. It should simply make us aware and take account, a much deeper account of what we do have, right? And it's easier said than done. I know that, and it's got to be a struggle. I've never experienced vision loss. I can only go by what I've been told by friends and so on. But there is a sense where you are much more than the loss of vision, and your ability to think, your ability to express yourself. They will find a way. I don't know if I answered that or not. I kind of went off my own little rabbit trail, but
that was a good trail. That was a good, and I think that kind of ends up to being one of the last points that we have today. Sorry, I'm reading this, but it kind of segues into this about our inner dialogue. We spent time on this when we met together as a group, and people had some thoughts on it and shared some things with one another, but about our inner dialogue. And when it gets too noisy, or when our inner dialogue is false, right? You said, speak your truth about yourself, even when you need to speak it out loud, because that reinforces the frontal lobe. Can you tell I'm a social work major? But it reinforces the frontal lobe, and it quiets the inner chatter, and it keeps us from knowing the wholeness of who we are. That rings so true to me and some of the people that were on the call. So if you could just expound on that just a little bit.
Yeah, and I have to say first, I'm not a neurologist. When I use terms like frontal lobe, it is to the best of my ability of how I know it. I'd be more than willing to be corrected if I'm off there. But I will say that when we have inner dialogue, and especially when we feel alone, the inner dialogue is very rarely accurate. It is filled with half-truths and exaggerations. It is filled with shame. It is filled with anger. It is filled with what ifs, and it is exhausting. There is a direct connection with feeling this anxiety and depression. They always go hand in hand. And I've always thought that after anxiety runs its course, we have these thoughts, these whirling thoughts, we get exhausted. And I think that's where depression starts to fall in. It's like we just lose energy. We don't have any oomph to go because we're tired of all the thoughts in our mind. So bringing it, how do I say this? When you speak your truth and speak it out loud, there's a lot of things that happen. Well, first of all, I think I said this in the first time, that if you do this, and if you speak your truth out loud, be alone, because people are going to think you're talking to yourself, and there's a whole list of medications for that. So be alone, but speak your truth. I am a complete person. I am a person who is capable of great love. I am a person who, if given the chance, can do amazing things with my abilities, my skills. I'm willing to learn different things. Say those things out loud. And what happens is, and this is part of the strength of narrative therapy, is you're separating yourself from the problem, and you're looking at it and as I say, you're speaking it out loud. It's almost like you just spoke this thing out loud. You heard the words, and you can grab onto it and say, look, I see what the reality of this is, and I see where the points of lies and exaggerations are. And if I'm going to get busy, I need to hang on to what the reality is. And all of us, are so much closer to our whole self, to our authentic self, than what we realize. It is that inner dialogue that keeps us from grasping who we are and just embracing it. God made us to be whole people. And there's a lot to explore in that. And I want to, if it's okay, I want to end with this. Somebody had told me this, and I thought about it for years, and there's so much truth to it. And I want you just to imagine that you're swimming in this great body of water. And as you're swimming, you actually enjoy swimming. You like the exercise, you like the water, and you're good at it. But after about 5 minutes, you look around and you realize there's no land in sight, and you're swimming. And suddenly you're swimming and you're doing something that used to be enjoyable, but now it's becoming a struggle, because now you don't even know if you can find land. And the water that you once enjoyed is now becoming a deficit to you, and it's becoming something that could take your life. And now you start, after 10 minutes, after 15 minutes, you're really starting to get tired. And you're not swimming anymore, you're just paddling. And somewhere in the midst of all of this, a voice from on high says, just stand up. It's not over your head. And when I heard that, I think there's so much truth to that. That is what inner dialogue and inner chatter that is negative to us does. It makes us think the land's nowhere around. But I'm here to say that very rarely is the water over your head. Just stand up, take a respite, take a break. It's okay. Find yourself again.
Man,
Mm.
good stuff.
Thank you. I wish I could claim it, but it's not mine. So.
And that's a good segue to just tell people that we're going to be having another session with you on the 20th.
The 20th of
I have that written down, right?
November?
It's the 20th.
There you go.
And we're going to be talking about
seasonal affective disorder.
Right.
Yeah. So I've got to talk. We'll have a PowerPoint presentation with this. Beth, you'll have to help me. I've never done it on Zoom, so hopefully we can do this. But We got some good points coming up. Good.
Excellent. It's navigating the holidays. I think that was it too. Navigating the holidays and seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
Coping with stress.
Mm.
And you've talked a little bit about that today. We've talked, any other good points, anything come to mind? If you just close your eyes and think, anything else about communication that you can think of?
Yeah, just be yourself. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody. Just be yourself, offer yourself whenever you want to. We, especially now in this election time, and I learned, earlier on, with social media, that if you have an opinion, you don't have to share it. Sometimes you can listen.
Really?
Yeah, really, I know.
No, I'm joking.
With all the the objective conversations that go on social media. Not really, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so just be yourself. There's a lot to be said about realizing who you are and who you're not, and coming to a conversation or a relationship with that, because people pick up on that. If you're okay with yourself, more than likely other people are going to be okay with you too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me again today on a Friday at the end of a business week.
Mhm.
I know it's been a long week for Russ, and you got to show us your dog.
If he, well, I'm going to take my computer down because he's
Yeah,
fast
yeah.
asleep. He's been snoring. So here's my little baby. There you go. Yeah, he's a good boy. He's part Mastiff, part Rottweiler. So he's a big boy. Yeah,
No kidding.
yeah, and you didn't hear him. He was snoring a little earlier. So he's a good office mate.
Maybe we'll see him at our next time together.
Yeah, I hope so. Good.
Well, thank you so much again for your time. Thank you for joining us, joining me today and recording the highlights from our meeting from last 2 weeks ago. So have a great weekend, and thank you to the CRF community again. I hope this helps. And folks, if you have if we missed some things, or if you specifically, have a rub, or you're stuck somewhere specifically with communication, please email me. Everything is confidential. I will pass along the question either to Russ, or I can approach Russ, and maybe the two of you, or if it's a couple situation, you can work with Russ independently. We would love to do that. So just go to the Choroideremia Research Foundation, and my email is there, or it's Beth Foss at CureCHM.org. All right.
You.
Thank you so much. We'll see you later.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.